momentous decision or monumental decision that could completely derail the case altogether if Judge Scott McAfee were to come out and say he's determined Fani Willis is disqualified.
Yeah. You know, a couple of things. Absolutely. That's what we're still waiting on. And that was kind of the bomb that we were expecting to drop this week. And so this is certainly a separate, unexpected, though certainly consequential ruling from the judge. A couple of things I want to point our attention to, though, when we talk about those 6 counts. Remember, the former president was charged with 13 counts altogether. So for 6 of them to be dismissed, that takes away nearly half the counts that he's facing in Georgia. But when you look at the judge's breaking down of those counts, I want to take you back to what started this whole thing in the beginning. That was that phone call that the former president made to the Republican Secretary of State here in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, essentially asking him to find enough votes to overturn Biden's election victory here in the state. Well, the judge is basically saying that the charges, the counts related to that phone call, he is throwing out. And so that's kind of what a lot of people know as the biggest thing around these charges for the former president, the biggest kind of action around it. And so the judge in this ruling is saying that those counts related to that phone call are going to be thrown out. What it's also saying is that, you know, part of the indictment is that several members, several people who have been charged, solicited elected members of the Georgia Senate and the Georgia House of Representatives to, quote unquote, violate their oaths by requesting or asking them to unlawfully appoint presidential electors. That's being thrown out as well. Oh. And so I think that it's certainly important when we look at the counts, but also what the alleged action was behind it that's also being removed from this indictment. I've been in touch with Steve Sadow. He is the lead Georgia attorney for the
if you don't acknowledge that all this stuff happened against Trump, if you've looked into it, if you haven't looked into it, zip it. I don't want to hear anything from your mouth. If you have not looked into these charges and all you do is listen to whatever these people tell you, because these people were telling you just before this broke about 7 hours ago, before this story broke, the minute before it broke, these people were telling you that the Georgia call was something that he should have been charged on. And everyone who's looked into it that I know, they know that it's not true. If you've looked into it and you still think it's true, then you are in infection. Then you are an infection.
You are an infection. You are the definition of weakness. Everything that is wrong with the world is because of fucking you.
Judge Scott McAfee tosses the find me the votes Georgia phone call. When I was still blue-pilled, I was coming out of the matrix at that time. I had started the channel, but I was still kind of formed. You know how you don't immediately get out the matrix? I was kind of like, ah! When I was still doing that, even I knew back then it was bullish. And now it's confirmed by the judge. The judge basically said it's bull. This is like with the gig's up, it's just all bull. But here's the takeaway. What's the consequence for this? Colorado, New York, let's just look. Colorado knew 100% that what they were doing was ballot interference. That's why when the Supreme Court ruled that he could be taken off the ballot, they said, well, we'll put a stay on it until we hear what the Supreme Court says. That's not what you do when you have the confidence in your conviction to stand by your verdict. If you have the confidence in your verdict, you don't put any stay on it. They knew 100% that it was election interference when they removed Trump from the ballot. The same thing here in Georgia. They know the whole thing's phony. They still have some charges left. They're just taking the pieces away from the case before the fanny ass stuff drops. And Nathan, we talked about Nathan Wade allegedly having Fannie Willis. Basically, he acted like he was licking Fannie Willis's toes like he was a Deer Creek high school student. And what are the consequences for these actions? That's the level we're in. The pandemic came and they put grown-ass, you and me, grown-ass people, grown-ass adults in muzzles. And we did that, some of us, those who did. If you didn't, much respect to you. But I did. One of the lowest moments of my life, I put my 2-year-old at the time in a damn muzzle so I could drop him off at daycare. What are the consequences? Now that we know it was bullish, who's paying a price? What's to stop this from happening again next election cycle? That's the era. That's what we're in right now. It's not enough to say, whoa, it's falling apart. Don't ever do it again.